taking your micro goal and then working up the food chain to figure out how does it fit in getting you to where you're really trying to get with your life. This is going to bring us to the whole theme of this year. This is the year of doing less. This year, I'm encouraging everybody to think about what can you do less of, not what can you do more of to make your life more complicated. This is powerful. There is no self-improvement without self-awareness. Hello, everybody. We're doing our 2023 focus planning live seminar. And this is the first time I've done this, but I invited people that are friends that live in my area that are either in my text community or a friend of mine or in my locals community to come down here and do this planning live with us. So bear with us as we go through a whole new format where I'm kind of trying to focus on the live stream, but I also want to engage with the people that are here. So bear with us. This is going to go for about 60, maybe 90 minutes. So hopefully, if you're not here live, you will take the time to watch the replay and sit down and carve out not just this 1 hour, but a whole entire day to dedicate to what is your life all about? So, and that's a big question. It's not something that you can just answer in a 1 hour live stream. So before I get going on, we're going to get really tactical, but we're going to start with big picture. And before I start kind of going into my spiel and putting out there the things that work for me and the things that I employ in my life, because I don't give advice, right? I don't. I put good things out into the world and then people get to go, yeah, I can relate to that. Or you know what, that doesn't work for me because I don't want the burden of someone else's life in my hands. I take giving advice very serious. And I think that's something that is lost in our current world. Everybody's a freaking expert at everything. And with giving advice comes a tremendous amount of responsibility, right? And the bigger my audience is, the more that responsibility grows, right? So it's what I'm focusing on my book right now is I'm not here to tell anybody how to live. I'm just kind of gifted with gab and the ability to really put myself out there. I don't worry about what people think about me all that much. And so I'm willing to share my ups and downs, and then you guys can take from it what you will. Okay. So before we go into all of that though, the reason I do this planning meeting each year is because it kind of makes me crazy this time of year where everybody's focusing on New Year's resolutions and what am I going to do? You just see, if you look at your Instagram feed, it's nothing but new fitness ads, right? It's new planning ads, people that are going to change your life next year, which just isn't true, right? If you have a gym membership, it's you go for 2 weeks and every machine is full. And then all of a sudden you go the third week and nobody's around, right? And so I'm going to start with what we're doing different here and why I've had the success in my life that I've had. And it's because I don't tackle goals the way most people tackle goals. So there's three. I made some notes for myself so we can really kind of stay on task because I have a lot to cover. But there are three major flaws in how most people approach their goals or goal setting or resolutions for the year. First and foremost is that they are starting with the micro level details in their day, right? They are searching for a new diet. They're searching for some new thing, a new book, right? They're looking at all of these things they're going to do at the micro level, but they have no idea why they're doing those things. I'll use weight loss as just a really a big example this whole time, because that's just something that the vast majority of people out there struggle with, right? Or have struggled with at some point. Plus, it's just very easy to give this as an example. So when someone wants to lose weight or they want to get healthy, like, why? And that may sound like an obvious question, but it's not. And we're going to walk through that process. So we're not going to start with these micro level, this is the way you should start your morning, and then this is what you should do at noon, and then this is what you should do before bed. You'll get there, but that isn't where to start. Because if your goals aren't attached to a bigger meaning about, like, what do you even want in your life? Right? If they're not attached to that, you will not stick with them. So losing weight for spring break isn't important enough for people, or they already wouldn't be overweight. That's just a fact. And I saw that for nearly 2 decades in my fitness coaching, right? The goals have to be related to what really in our heart and soul makes us tick. Okay? So we're going to start looking at that, which is a lot to tackle, but I'm going to give you ways to do it. So number one mistake people make in goal setting is that it's too micro. Second one is that the solution is something they're seeking outside of themselves. So they think a new job will solve the problem. They think moving will solve the problem. Now, maybe those things will be necessary, but that isn't the solution, because one of my favorite sayings is, like, we take us wherever we go. And this was a lesson I had to learn really hard when I was in my 20s. I just wanted to go from job to job to job, move. I just couldn't sit still. And it was because I was running from me. It had nothing to do with I was going to find a solution in a new career, right? Or in somebody else, in a new relationship, in a new friendship. That wasn't cutting it, right? So the second mistake is people look for outside solutions instead of first internally figuring out, like, what is it I want from my life, right? And that seems like it seems like almost a cliche question, right? But it's not, because I promise you, the vast majority of people can't even articulate that. Because it isn't something you can articulate until you dedicate actual time to figuring out what it is you really are here for. And then the last one is that the goals are too vast. There's, like, I want to change my lifestyle. I have to improve my marriage. I have to improve things at work. I need to change my eating habits. All right. And why that doesn't work is because as human beings, we are resistant to change. And why are we resistant to change? Because change disrupts our homeostasis and makes us feel fear. It threatens us, right? And so we want consistency, and we resist change because that's just a basic survival technique, right? It's ingrained in us. So when we approach new goals as something where I'm just going to turn my whole world upside down, you are going to resist it, even though logically, like, this is good for me, doesn't matter. Okay? So those are the 3 pitfalls. And now we're going to get into the fun stuff so if we don't start at the micro, where do we start? This big macro level. And this isn't something that we're going to be able to figure out today, right? Some of you are already going to know this whole, like, what do I really want from my life? And other people are like, you know what? Like, I don't know. I just go to work and I raise my kids and I go to the grocery store and I try to be happy. I'm not miserable. That's what I want. Maybe you're there, right? But I'm going to try to give you some tools and helping you figure out, dig a little deeper into what is it that you really believe, okay? So to do that, I'll share mine with you. And when I was preparing for this meeting, I got out the video from last year, because it's really cool to see where you've come in a year. And I always watch old videos of myself and cringe. I'm like, God, stop yelling at everybody like Hillary Clinton barking in people's faces. I feel like that's something I'm totally working on. And I think I've come a long way since last year. It was like, you need to do this. You need to do this. It's like, oh, okay, I got it. And it's just because I'm passionate. It's not because I like Hillary Clinton. But anyway, as I watched that video from last year and I shared what I would call as my mission statement, right? Like, this is my mission for my life. It hasn't changed much. I've tweaked it, and now I'm at a deeper level of understanding of what it means, but it really hasn't changed. And that is to connect myself and others to goodness that is common amongst all of humanity. So like when I say things like that to my husband, he's like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know. I just go to work and I'm a good guy, right? So your mission statement is personal to you. That's where I've landed after a lot of years of exploring myself and what really lights me up. Mm-hmm. So when we look at like, well, how do I create this mission statement? Whether you own a business or you work for someone, think about a company. A company doesn't just start and then they start doing all these little things. Well, we're going to advertise here. We're going to send out emails. It's like, okay, well, what are you trying to accomplish? Mm-hmm. So be thinking about it in those terms. That's just a great analogy. It's like, well, a good business, one that's going to succeed, is not just going to get out there and try stuff. They're going to have a mission. Like, what do they want to accomplish? And so that's a good way for you to frame your mind around like, what is it you're trying to do in your life? Okay. Does that, tell me, does that resonate? Does the concept of that's too big of a picture, or does it feel like you can get there?
I'm there.
Yeah.
Because that's how
Jenny's here. So for everybody watching from home, people know Jen because she's my BFF, and she's been involved in EML with me, and she's like my soul sister. So Jenny's here too. But Jenny just said this, yes, that she's there. Like, she knows that. And we would say, you know it and you live it and tweak it and practice it each and every day. Mm-hmm. Right? For anybody that's like, I'm happy and stuff, but I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I work, but I kind of work and live for the weekend to come, right? If that's where you're at, which is truly most people, right? And that's not an insult. It's just a fact. That is where most people live. Things to ask yourself are, what do I really love? Mm-hmm. What do you love? Like, can someone tell me something you love?
Helping other people like achieve their greatest potential.
How do you do it?
Through getting people educated, like in a new career field. That's where I kind of focus in my efforts in my life.
Cool.
I've spent a whole year doing this why thing, like you're saying, and I kept having to go back like month after month and tweaking it. Like you said, what do I love? And then it would change. I'm like, okay, wait, I don't really love that. And then I just kept trying. So now I feel like I think I know what my why is more like you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it took months.
Yeah. It's a long process, and it changes and shifts, as I was just talking about before we turned everything on, with the seasons that we go through in our life. Yeah. Do you have anything that you love? And it doesn't even have to be big. Like, what do you love? Like, I love poetry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love poetry. I love interesting people. I love really delicious food. Mm-hmm. Like good food. Right? Like, I don't love Taco Bell. Like, I love really good food. I love foreign languages. I like to listen to people that I can't understand what they're saying. I love words. I love knowing the definition of a word, which is a complete lost art, right? Which is so important. It's something I'm digging into deeply right now. I love to learn. I love meeting new people. Mm-hmm. I love having interesting conversations. We found, I think I've said this before, but we found I have a tape recorder that my dad, who committed suicide when I was only 10, he used to carry this tape recorder. It's one of those little mini cassette recorders. Mm-hmm. If you're old like me, you'll know what I'm talking about. He used to carry that around job sites. And after he died, I kept that because it was like I could hear his voice and it meant so much to me. But then I used to turn it on and I used to record. I would interview my sisters. I've got 4 older sisters that are much older and they were already married. So my mom found recently of that videotape. Now this is 40 years old because that was when I was 10 and I'm 50 now. So it was 40 years ago. It's my voice going like, well, hi, Barbara. Can you tell me a little bit about like what you do for a living? Like, but it's so, when I heard it, I was like, for one, it like brought me to tears because it was like hearing my voice at 10 years old. That's really freaking cool, right? But knowing that, like, what do I do now? Right? I talk to people, I interview people. So no wonder I'm happy a lot of the time. So I'm getting a phone call because I'm doing something that I actually truly love to do since I was little.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you think about the things you love, think in terms of that. Like what really lights you up inside.
Yeah.
Now, a caveat to that, in this modern world, and I think especially amongst younger people, is that they think that what they love has to be where they make their money. And that's why nobody can kind of feel content in their career, right? Because they're like, I'm just constantly seeking and none of this I'm not passionate about this. It's like, well, yeah, I tell you what, like I wasn't passionate about working at a tanning salon when I was in high school. I wasn't passionate about making coffee, although I liked the smell of coffee and enjoyed talking to people. Like I wasn't passionate when I managed a law firm. I wasn't passionate when I had my financial career. The only one I really hated was the financial career, and thank God I left it. But where you make money is not necessarily going to be what you're passionate about. Now, you are hugely blessed if you can marry those two. Like that's fucking gold, right? But it isn't what happens for most people. So where you make your money, the biggest thing is you want to make sure that it's not killing your soul on a daily basis, right? But it's somewhere that you actually enjoy being, right? You enjoy your work. And sometimes through what you're doing for making a living can give you some hints about what you are passionate about. Okay? So just keep it real clear that those two are not necessarily going to intersect. Okay? So what you love is the first set of questions to ask yourself. Okay? And get really specific. I love to do this. Like I love words and I love to write. So I'm kind of cheating a little bit, but writing down what you love and then recognizing what you love. And when you do this practice, one thing you'll find too is that you probably don't have enough of the things that you really love in your life.
One of the things I think is really important is to understand that when you ask yourself, what do you love? That it comes from an authentic, deep relationship to yourself. Because many people answer that question, what do you love, based on what is going to look good on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. And so the concept of what do you love gets squashed by what are you trying to present? And when you hide behind what are you trying to present, you actually don't know what you love, because you're actually giving your, hi Instagram land, let me fix my hair so I look more presentable. What happens is when you come from this place of what can I present to the world, your goals, which all of you know, if you listen to Eve and I's podcast, goals are a thing that does this to me. Because goals come from lack. Most people's goals come from a lacking place. I lack the love of myself, therefore I must lose weight. I lack the love of myself, therefore I'm gonna look for a new relationship. I lack the love of myself, so I need a new job. Because like Eve said, you're externally trying to pull in everything that you think is going to make you happy. But it doesn't make you happy because it's outside of yourself. And what people forget is you're born of happiness. You have it. It's never gone, always present, never absent. We forget that we're happy all the time in search of other people trying to validate how we feel. And so what do you love? You have to sit with it. Like Eve said, you have to sit with it. And Eve knows this. I just came off of silent meditation for days on end. And if you sit with what do I love in a meditative situation for more than 10 minutes, things start to bubble up for you. And it's in that moment of self-care that you can actually listen with the ear of your heart, as opposed to, I'm going to write down, what do I love? What do I love? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, I love chicken. Okay, cool. I love, being around people, but do you love being around people because you don't want to be around yourself? And so the onion has to peel itself in such a deep way that you got to get to the scary parts where you don't know how to answer the question in order to answer the question.
This is why Jenny's like my soul sister, because she's everything I'm not. Well, there's lots of commonality, but there are so many things in her that are not in me. And she's not feeling something that that is missing in me. She completes me in a way. I don't need friends that are just like me, that are barking at you like Hillary Clinton, right? I don't need those kind of friends.
We've said her name too many times.
We have. We've given her so much attention today. But when I met Jen, it was like a slow evolution of like a dance with one another.
Yeah.
We have a lot of different beliefs. We have a lot of shared beliefs. All of the things that I, kind of talk about, like the surface, like the crackly stuff, like we don't even necessarily talk about it, because whether or not we politically feel the same or anything doesn't matter. We dress totally different. Like how I sum it up in a conference, and this just came to me when I was speaking in front of this group, and Jen was there the first time we did a conference together. It was when I met Jen, it was like hearing someone say the things I would say, but in another language. And that's how I still describe it, right? We have the same message and are able to say it in two completely different languages, which is so cool. Like it's a godsend to have someone in your life that can complement what we teach and what I want to share with the world. So thanks for
When
that.
it resonates differently with each
It
person.
does.
Just
It
based on how
does.
they connect with you
Exactly.
or how they connect with Jen.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. And she makes me think about things in different ways, right? Which is so good. I mean, we'll get to friends or tools in your life too. We'll get there too. So to move on, because we're taking a ton of time, but that's all right, because we're just going to go with the flow. The last step that I'll share with you in getting to this bigger picture is take your micro, because everybody has these. Take your micro and work your way up to the macro. So, for instance, would be, does someone have like a micro goal that they came in here with in their mind? If you want to share, like something you want to do, or that you say, like, I'm going to do this every day.
An everyday one would be just going to the gym every day at the same time.
Okay,
Committing
so
to that. There we go.
Victoria says she wants to go to the gym every day at the same time. Fantastic goal, right? So then you say, why do I need to go to the gym every day?
To feel my best, that way I can be my best for everyone else.
So see how the process works? Why do I need to do that? Why do you need to feel your best?
Because that's the only way I can be my best for my family. If I don't feel good, how can I pour from an empty cup?
Which kudos to you as a mom, because that's huge. Which said was, if I don't feel good and I'm not taking care of myself, I can't take care of other people, which is fabulous, right? More moms need to like adopt that mindset, right? It's like, it doesn't make you a good mom when you neglect yourself. I promise you, that's just all ego. But that's the process. You start with, okay, one of mine's like, I meditate and pray every morning. Why do I need to do that? Right? Versus I weigh and measure my food every day. I'm going to weigh and measure my protein and carbs and fat every day. Why?
So you can beat the shit out of yourself.
Right. Like, why?
So you can.
Why
make
do you need to do
excuses.
that? Right. Do you see how if I connect myself and others to all that is good and common amongst all of humanity, I need to answer the question for myself, well, then why am I going to spend a massive amount of mental energy and time on weighing and measuring my food? Okay, right? And that's coming from someone who weighed and measured their food for 7 years. At that time, it served a purpose because I was competing at a really high level in a sport. But aside from that, why would you do that? Right? So, and then we'll go on. But taking your micro goal and then working up the food chain to figure out how does it fit in doing in getting you to where you're really trying to get with your life. And this is going to bring us to the whole theme of this year for me, and I'm hoping people out there will engage in it too, is this is the year of doing less. So I learned a concept this year that's called via negativa. It's how we learn about something, how we understand something by describing what it isn't. And it is initially stemmed from how we explain God, right? Because like, how are you going to explain or describe God to someone? You do that by describing what he or it is not, right? And it's the overarching theme in the book that I'm working on is we are not something that we are searching for out there, right? We're not something that we take a bunch of things and put together. We are already whole. And then I came across this, it was kind of a quote, and I wrote an article about it earlier this year, that the Pope asked Michelangelo how he carved David, right? And his response was, it's simple. I just remove everything that isn't David. That, it gave me chills again. Like I say this thing to myself and I'm writing about it extensively in my book. That is what we want to focus on going into this year. This is my focus for the year. It is about taking away the things that are keeping me from being authentically who I am. Okay? I've shared it far and wide. Like the biggest factor for me that was keeping me from being who I really am was alcohol. Right? Aside from it getting completely out of my control, like physically out of my control, which was a scary place to be in my life. Aside from that, alcohol keeps me in every way, from my energy level to my creative mind, my patience, all of the things that make me me, alcohol keeps me from doing that. So at this point, I can consciously make a choice not to drink or to drink. Like I'm not afraid to say that. Like, and I choose not to because it keeps me from being who I really am. It's not a battle for me. It's not I wake up every day and want to have a drink. It has nothing to do with it. No, I'm not. Now that's not for everybody that's recovered from having an addiction. I'll tell you that. But that's my story, right? So this year, I'm encouraging everybody to think about what can you do less of, not what can you do more of to make your life more complicated. And
Well, the complication is a shield of sabotage, isn't it? Because the more complicated your life is, the more complicated your life is, the more you can hide from what you actually need to do. You know, and so I wonder perhaps if the alcohol was actually the shield to digging deep into who you are versus, well, I have an addiction. You know what I mean? So sometimes, and I've never drank. A caveat to that is I've never drank. So I'm speaking from a place of complete idiocy. But I grew up with alcoholics surrounding me. So I definitely understand what that does to people. But I also understand that sometimes the root of why is I'm masking my fear. I'm masking my imposter syndrome. I'm masking my whatever behind this layer of alcohol or drugs or sex or food or whatever addiction you want to pull from the world. And so what I see in you is that you are no longer afraid, correct, to be who you are. And so alcohol it's not even in your psyche anymore because you're no longer afraid.
Correct. That is, and you're completely spot on. True. And this is a little off topic, but it's worth saying because people you can't believe the number, literally every day of my life, the messages I get. And I haven't spoken extensively about it because, again, it's one of those things where advice involves a lot of responsibility. And my story with alcohol, I don't want people to latch onto it and then go, oh, well, that's the way it works. Because it's not the way it works. It's the way it worked for me, right? My husband and I were just talking about this laying in bed last night about this. There's a spectrum of everything, right? There's a spectrum of recovery because there was an article that came out in the Free Press yesterday about using a drug that inhibits like the pleasure uptake of alcohol. And he asked me what my opinion was on it. And I said, I'm not comfortable really saying what I think about that yet because I'm not huge on altering your brain chemistry. But if it makes you not drink, then that's better than not, right? So there's a spectrum that we go through in everything. And not arrogantly, but when it came to a struggle with alcohol, I ended up in the spectrum at the far end of it of I completely had a spiritual transformation and I don't need any substances. I don't need to hide behind anything, right? Although, and this is worth mentioning because there's someone in the group that also talked about procrastination. I have replaced alcohol when I'm trying to hide. I've replaced it with procrastination. So I'm not just a procrastinator, right? I saw it in myself. It's like, oh, I'm procrastinating because when that fear steps in of like, nobody really wants to hear your voice. You're not a very good writer. Like, why do you think that you're capable of leading people the way you think you're capable of? I have those thoughts on the daily. And when I have them, I just procrastinate, right? So it's like, yeah, maybe I'm not enough. Maybe my book isn't going to sell well. Maybe nobody is going to tune into my live stream, right? That
self-sabotage.
It's completely, and it shows its head in very different ways. And it was alcohol at one point for me for a brief period of time. And I have to be cognizant of it's not being other things, right? So for the procrastinator out there, you know who you are, who's in touch with me, watch that, right? It's like, it's replacing another area that you would be hiding from yourself. Okay. So does that give everybody at least some good basic steps in starting working your way from the micro up to the macro? Cool. There is, this is a powerful statement. And why we do this, because I know there's a lot of people that are like, can't you just tell me how to structure my day? Okay. This is powerful. There is no self-improvement without self-awareness. So again, I'll reference my book. People ask me all the time, like, what is your book about? Like, fuck, what is it not about? Like, that would be an easier question to answer. Because is it a self-help book? I fear that it's probably going to get put in the self-help section of the bookstore. I know. But I am very clear. It's not a self-help book. It's a self-awareness book. So I give you some tools to help you know who you are, because I can tell you all the little things to do. But if you, again, don't know how to connect that to yourself, they're all for naught. That's why the vast majority of self-help books, you know, the 5 rules of this, all these different steps, right? 8 steps to success. And now there's business coaches that make millions off of doing that. And I do think those can be helpful. I think maybe, Sarah, did you ask me that question about what books?
Did, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
awesome. See, I do have a good memory.
And how you structure your day.
Yes. But Sarah, who's here, had asked me a question about like, what books do I recommend and what do I read? And I think there was, what was the one I have on my shelf? 5 Habits of Highly Successful People. Is that what it was? Okay, well, I haven't read it. Like, it's like I looked at it, but I'm like, I got one in and I was like, well, this is all surface stuff. So once you are kind of dialed in and knowing who you are, then finding those little tools, which we'll get to at the end, that's when those become helpful. But again, thinking that answer is in a self-help book is just not going to be there, right? So all self-improvement and self-actualization starts with self-awareness. And then we're just going to take a really quick kind of hard left turn here to something that I have been contemplating for a while now. And I woke up at 2:00 in the morning and figured out how to put these things that were floating around in my brain onto a piece of paper. And I've kind of termed it the spiral of wisdom. I've talked about it on a couple of other of my live streams. And this is relevant to what we're doing today, as in like literally everything else in your life. Like this reframing the way you learn will completely change every aspect of your life if you can really wrap your head around this. So we're in a time that we think that everything should be on a linear trajectory, right? And when it's not, we look at everybody else around us and we feel like failures because like they're so much further ahead on this line than we are, right? And I won't go too deeply in it, but there are no straight lines in nature, period. Nothing that exists naturally in the world is in a straight line. Look around. Man came in and made all these things that are linear. Linearity does not exist in nature. Pay attention to that. So why we would think as a living being that we would somehow be linear, we will never find happiness. And I think that that's very evident, and it's not my opinion, it's fact. We are living in a time where people are over-medicated, completely obese, completely reliant on healthcare and medication. We have record levels of suicide. Like, our environment is not a healthy, thriving environment, right? If you were trying to grow something in a lab in this environment, it would die, right? We're in a toxic environment, okay? And a big part of that is because of this mindset of linearity. Like, I should be just moving and everything should make perfect sense and have an answer. And it doesn't. And as long as we think about it that way, we aren't going to be able to feel fulfilled, right? So what does it look like? It looks like a Jacob's ladder. It's spherical. We're never in the same place twice, and we are at an elevated level. Okay. Now, this is relevant in today's discussion because of how we're learning. We seem to think that gaining knowledge, then understanding, and eventually wisdom will come from stacking blocks of information on one another. We are in an age of just information overload, right? Like that's a big problem for everyone. Like we've never, and it's a beautiful thing because we have access to all this information, but we are actually inputting way too much. And we're under the misconception that if the more we input, the more we're going to be able to output. And we're not computers, right? It's how our education system is completely flawed, which is a whole nother topic in and of itself, right? Data in, data out, right? It doesn't work that way. So all this has been floating in my head, and I finally woke up in the middle of the night and was able to draw this. And I went to my computer and was able, because it's helpful if you can give it in a graphic for people to understand what I'm saying, right? So information is the lowest level, right? It's just data. It's data input. It doesn't mean anything. And people are stuck right here thinking that because they have information, they have one fucking clue about what they're talking about, right? Oh gosh.
Hello, Generation Z.
Yes. Okay. You have a lot of information and absolutely no knowledge and definitely no understanding and far from wisdom.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do we get there? Think about it this way. If you were to tell someone, like say that I know Eve. Okay. If you told them she has blue eyes, she has blonde hair, she's 50, how much does that person know about me based on that data point?
Nothing.
They know nothing, right? The more you're around, there's data. You can see that on me, but then you're like, oh, I'm around you. I listen to you speak. I read stuff that you write. Now I'm getting to kind of know you, right? It's getting up close and personal with the information. So take this to a nutritional level. This is why diets don't work. You can read about the paleo diet or a keto diet and it's facts, but you don't know anything about it. Right? I think this was you that a long time ago, and I've used this ever since, saying that information is just facts until it's felt in the body.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I can tell you all the things I know, but until you actually experience it for yourself, that's when you start to get to know it. The more you get to know it, the more you understand it. So everybody in this room knows me. You have some knowledge about me, right? Now, Jenny, because she's around me all the time, would understand me. See that? When you use it as a person, it's really clear. Right? So then I may do something. I didn't even have to say it. And she would be like, oh, I totally understand why she did this because I know her more intimately. Let me give you an example of someone that's in our locals group that started using the glucose monitor, the continuous glucose monitor, which is fantastic technology, by the way. It's very good tech. It's still technology and data points, but it is a really good way for you to learn about what's going on in your body, and you can't deny it, right? Because it's real. You don't just get to go, no, that's not really true. Right, this is clicking. So this gal messaged me and said, oh my God, I got the continuous glucose monitor. Thank you for recommending that. I have learned so much about myself. And then this is the kicker. She said, come to find out, everything you have ever taught me over the last couple of years is true.
They just needed
Okay,
validation.
Right. She had to see it and feel it in her own body. So then I messaged back and said, yeah, I'm not entirely full of shit. Funny. I don't tell people things I actually don't know anything about. Right. But my sister fell into that same camp. This is my sister who works with me. She's my director of operations. Like, she's been on by my side. She got the continuous glucose monitor, and now she keeps on sending me messages about Dr. Casey Means that she's telling her this stuff. I'm like, really? Oh, awesome. Yeah, I've been telling you that for basically 10 years. But the point in that is that's where it starts to go from knowledge to understanding. Oh my God, I understand how this is actually working in my body. And then this gal, like, humbly said, and I realized I'm probably diabetic.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's powerful. She now understands because she's experienced it in her own body. Right? So as you go, the reason I'm sharing all this, and then wisdom is a whole nother topic we don't even need to touch on. But as we go through this process, my hope is that this will help you be patient and realize that it really is a continuous process. It's not some linear trajectory where you're like, at the end of the year, I need to have done this, this, and this, and now I'm a better person. Okay? You're basically just at information gathering, and then you'll practice it and turn it into knowledge, and then you'll experience it in your own body in time, and you're like, I fully understand this.
It also validates, I think, on an annual basis that you're not failing yourself if you're continuing to repeat those same actions on your to-do list or your goal list.
Yep, you got it. Because in that, and we can talk too, like towards the end, about like, how do we go back and evaluate, like, okay, where am I kind of still spinning my wheels, or maybe I haven't made any forward progress, versus like, that's okay, I've learned and I'm still at an elevated level than I was last year.
Right.
Yeah. Will you write that down so we can like talk about it a little bit at the end?
Yeah.
Cool. So I just wanted to share that spiral of wisdom with you.
That's great.
Thanks. It was worth getting me up out of bed at 2:00 in the morning. All right. So we're going to spend about 15 minutes going through, okay, now that we've discussed and our brains are kind of full of all this big picture stuff, what do we do on the more tactical level? Because I don't like to get that tactical, but I really want people to at least be able to put the next step in place, okay? Which would be what I call filling the buckets. Now, so for those of you that are in the locals program stuff, that's that video. I'll repost it at the top. I'll pin it to the top. I discussed all this last year about like, okay, what are your buckets now that you know what you're trying to accomplish? Where are all these different areas that you need to start filling up? And the only thing I'll caution about here is that avoid the temptation to make these my family, my work, my right. That is not how your life exists, right? You are existing in all of these different areas. So one of your buckets isn't like, here's who I am at work, here's who I am with my family, right? Like the work-life balance. I won't even go into that, but I hate that because it's just not such a thing. It's like you're just being, right? And when you're truly being authentic, then you're present where you're supposed to be present. But there's not a balance between like, it's 3:00, I got to cut off my work because I got to go do this with this person, and then I'm not even present with them. That's what that kind of thinking leads to, right? I know I'm a workaholic.
Maybe
like I get it. Like I really am a workaholic. But if I'm present with my family for 30 minutes and I'm truly present, my daughter will completely just ride on that for 2 days. And then she'll come back and we'll have this crazy deep conversation at dinner. And then that carries us for another week. Instead of this gratuitous, like, do you want to play cards? No, I fucking hate cards. Right? I do. I don't like to play games. My family, they play games. I don't play games. But wouldn't do it because it just fills a spot. Like this should be my family time. Forced family fun.
Forced family fun.
That's what Jenny
That's what
calls
I
it.
call it.
Right. So avoid that temptation. So if I were to say like, okay, what helps me? I'll just give you for example so that you can get your wheels turning. Writing is my bucket, right? Because how do I accomplish this? How do I connect others and myself to what's good in the world, right? Through writing, through speaking, and through ways that I can make money. Because we all have to make money. That's just a fact. And where I make money is how I gauge that is it has to have a purpose bigger than just making money, which is my food company, Copow, right? Because we really are reshaping the way people think about food. And then I developed already, it's coming to market next year, is a functional water that's called Greenius, because it drives me crazy that people drink their calories, and the marketing from these big beverage companies is so deceitful, right? It's just so dishonest because they're telling you like this is a healthy drink. And then what they've done now is on the nutrition label, they've, go as many as like 4 servings per container, right? And the container is 16 ounces, but there's 4 servings in there. And then and it's 36 grams of sugar per serving. So the consumer is not aware of what they're doing to you. So I saw this and I had trademarked the name Greenius back when I was developing my food company several years ago. And I was like, I'm going to call a new functional water Greenius, and it's actually good for you. It has nootropics and high dose vitamin B and immune boosting. There's 3 different formulas. So I'm doing something, and yeah, I'm going to make a shit ton of money doing it. Right? There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm doing something that has a mission beyond like, I'm just going to go out and make a bunch of money by selling people bullshit.
Well, money is energy.
It is. And for me, money is a matter of choices. It allows me more choices and more arenas to do all the things that I'm trying to accomplish in the big picture. I was completely, perfectly content when I didn't have any money. And I like when I have money and I can go do things with my family and do what I love from other places, because traveling is one of those things that I love to do. Right. So that's where money comes in, instead of just, I need to do this because I need to make a lot of money. And typically what happens in those scenarios is you don't make a lot of money. It's funny how the universe hands that to you. It's like, or you do and you're kind of miserable. You're still miserable with money. Cool. So those are like my buckets. Now, I don't have a bucket for my family and all that because it's all one big picture. Okay. And then we take it down to the next step from that is logistically, what does my writing look like? Right. And for you, this may be like, here's my job, right? Like, this is what I do for a living. Maybe I'm in real estate. I don't know. Like, what do the logistics of my everyday look like in order for me to use my job to do the thing that I'm really here to do? So for me, it's like I'm now doing the Sunday Snooze, which comes out on January 1st, which Yahoo, if you're not subscribed to that, do it. Because I'm so excited about it. I'm actually really funny in a really, really super rude way. And I was always too afraid to say the things that like I say to my husband or like I would say around my friends. And I'm not afraid to do it anymore. So I was like, fuck, I'm going to come up with a publication and I'm just going to say all the random shit that pops into my head. And if it's offensive, then people can just unsubscribe. That's no big deal. And I used to think, if I had another life, I would be a comedian. It was like, why do you need another life to be a comedian? Just be funny in your everyday life. So those are examples, right? Of doing what I love, the logistics of how I'm going to implement that. Okay. And then the last step in this is where we finally, and we're really kind of given the crash course, this is where we finally reach out and go, okay, I'm going to have tools to do all this. Because you got to have tools. And that's where all the external things come into play. And beyond all the other beautiful things they lend to your life, this is where friends and the people you surround yourself with are absolutely going to be your tool of destruction that dismantles everything you are set on course to do, or they are going to just be your nail and hammer and they're going to help you just chip away at everything you're trying to accomplish. And this is where we get back to the overriding theme of this whole entire year's planning is the year of doing less. less spending time and energy with people that do not make you better at being your authentic self. It is hard. It's very hard if you have created a scenario in your life where you have a lot of surface friendships or even people that you hang out with all the time because they're company and you share the same ballot at the poll box, right? That's why you're friends, or because you have a very similar bank account. That's a big one, right? It's one I've never been involved in whatsoever. If you've created that for yourself, you don't need to just go blow it up. And I will tell you, I used to be a blow it up person when I wasn't as healed as I am now. I used to have to fucking lob a grenade into anything I didn't want to be a part of anymore and fucking blow it up and then just go plant some new seeds. And I actually had a coach that almost used to encourage that in me. He's like, oh, it's great that you can just fucking blow things up and then just move on. It was like, oh my God, now I know how dysfunctional that is. If I'm secure in me, I don't need to blow anything up when I leave. I just gracefully leave and thank things for their time and energy they gave me in my journey, right? So if you think about who you spend your time with and who you surround yourself with right now, give that some serious consideration. Because I'm just telling you, it really will make or break whether or not you accomplish the things in your life you're trying to accomplish.
Well, it also shines the spotlight on your level of codependence, which for most people, 97% of the population has a codependency issue. And because of the seeking of outside validation and childhood trauma, right?
Which is completely true.
Huge. And so if all of my aims or goals or resolutions are based on my trauma, then I'm going to reach for people who are going to validate the worst parts of me. And so when you sit down and go, here's the 5 people, it really doesn't need to look at me. It's fine. It's totally cool.
I think it stopped.
I'm so good not having that. The thing is, what happens is you go, here's the 5 people in my life. Here's my 5 closest people in my life. For most people, it's a spouse or a best friend or, whatever. And then you go, okay, what is my spouse inviting me to become? What is my best friend inviting me to become? And many times the answers to that are, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I'm just existing because I have, 3 kids and we need to be married and we're just, and then you're dying. You're literally dying inside because that person isn't giving you what you need to be the best that you can be. And then you're afraid. And then fear comes in and then you're like, fuck it, I'm done. I'm just gonna keep moving forward because I don't want to create anything that would shine the spotlight on how unhappy I am. So when you sit down with your 5 people, you got to be truthful. Who are the 5 people? You know what I mean? And if one of those people isn't something bigger than you, whatever that belief system is for you, whether it be God or Jehovah, whoever, if that is not one of your 5, you are very confused. Whoever that person is. And I speak to that because I have a guru that I have deep connection with. And when I sit down and go, of all the things the universe created, it created me. Okay, now I have a relationship with that which is greater than me. So how can I now take that relationship and give it to the world? Because in my belief system, that's why I'm here. That which is greater than me steps itself down to me. I am here to show that which is greater than me what the world is like. And if I'm surrounded by 5 toxic people, which you may not recognize, but are toxic, then you're actually showing that which is greater than you that everything in life is toxic.
Well, and I like the point too that sometimes you don't have to blow up that relationship with those people because you no longer want them in your life. You just don't have to give them a front row seat.
That's so
they
great.
can just go to the back of the room. It doesn't mean you have to go make it a big thing, but they don't need to be in the front. They can go some rows back.
You're completely correct. Yep. And it's a really healthy way of looking at it. Actually, I have a therapist and she's, after years of looking for someone that would actually be a good fit for me, her and I have really gemmed together and she's helped me tremendously. But she reminds me of that all the time. that, and because it all comes back to personal accountability, right? It's always on us. The buck stops with you, period. You are the CEO of your life, right? You don't get to say it's someone else's fault. Everything in your life is what you allow. So because you all of a sudden decide not to allow something anymore, is it fair to that person that you blame it on them and you say, they did this to me, they're not enough, they're not this, and now I'm done with you? No, that is, you can't be angry at someone for being something that they are not. That was something yesterday that like blew my mind up for a couple of hours. There's someone that I'm angry at all the time because this person is not who I want them to be. Whose fault is that?
Yeah.
Mine, right? And thank God I have this therapist that's like, okay, you can change the situation, but it's not fair to be angry at the other person because they're not something you want from them. Then you get to decide, do they stay or do they go? You accept it or you don't accept it. You don't put it on them, which is what blowing up friendships really is about, right? And I've done that to a lot of people, shamefully. I've done that to a lot of people over the years, something I'm not proud of. So the people you surround yourself with really matter. And for me, I have probably the most variable group of friends and influences that you could imagine, truly. And I love that because each of these different areas of my life, I have an entrepreneurship group that I'm a part of that gives me the things I need to let me know I'm okay in my business. And they're further ahead of me. These people own, nearly $1 billion, one of them $1 billion in revenue company, right? That's someone I need. So finding people that are ahead of you in the game, wherever your game is, you got to seek them out. And the deal with that is it takes vulnerability and being willing to be told no. And then it's like, well, that's okay if they don't have a seat at their table right now. You can either keep on trying to make yourself one, which is me. I don't take no. I'm like, I am going to have you in my life, right? Maybe not now. At some point I will. But being okay with rejection and saying, you know what, maybe I don't have time for you right now, but I'll give you what I can. Right? But always seeking out people that are a little further along where you're trying to go. When I find I'm the smartest person in the room, I find a different room to be in. Really, like that's why I sold my gym. I had kind of done what I could do in this community, right? It's like, that's not arrogant. It's just fact. It's like, I need to go and be challenged. Right? So your biggest tool is going to be who you surround yourself with. Okay? And then your other tools are going to be in, depends on what your goal is, right? Depending on what the one thing that you're trying to focus on. If it's your health, then okay, then find a program or find a coach, right? I can help you with that in different areas if you want input from me. Whatever aspect of it is in your life, finding the right tools to help you put that whole thing together. That take it all the way down to the nitty-gritty. All right, I'm going to finish up with these. These are 8 things that were just in my head that I have learned in this last year. And I've learned a lot. I had everybody that's in this group really contemplate for the last couple of weeks, what did you learn about yourself last year? If you haven't done that, definitely start there. This year, I've probably learned more about myself than than all years combined, which I was saying to you guys is super cool. And it should inspire people that are older. It's like, I'm 50 and I could be very comfortable in my life and just read and write every day and not do anything, right?
Sure.
But gosh, what a waste of all my God-given talents, right? Like what a gift, a gift I have to give to the world, and what a waste that would be if I didn't do the work to learn about myself. Okay. So I learned a lot. I learned that I really don't think I'm worthy a lot of times. And that is something that no one from the outside would ever see, nor did I necessarily see it until I got really quiet and was willing to see it, right? We can't see things we're not willing to see. I learned I'm not good at asking for help. Those things matter because one of the points, and I'll get to these, I just wrote them randomly. It's like there's 8 things that are in my head right now that I learned recently that are game changers for me. And Number one is starting with, what do you know about yourself that nobody else would recognize? And again, these are in no particular order. Number two, and number one matters for this next one. Number two, be hyper vigilant about your shortcomings and your blind spots. Okay, so when I say that, the everyday people would say, well, you're not supposed to just sit there and pick yourself apart, right? It's very counterproductive to sit there and point out all your shortcomings. There's a difference between picking yourself apart gratuitously so that you can shame yourself, right? And let yourself off the hook, because that's what that is, right? If you make yourself, oh, you're such a bad person, it really relieves you from any duty of having to actually do any work to change it, doesn't it?
True.
Like, yes, that's a whole nother topic that I could write a whole entire book on. But being hyper vigilant about your shortcomings allows you to not set yourself up for failure. So if I know one of my blind spots is not asking for help, it's at the forefront of my mind. So like, I just asked a friend just 2 days ago, she's been telling me she would edit my writing for me, and I need an editor, and I don't want to like hire an editor right now for like articles that I write. That's a lot of money. And she offered to do this. So I literally texted her and was like, will you edit my article? And she was like, thank you so much. I'm so excited to do something that's outside of myself. And she was delighted that I asked her. And it really took a lot for me to have to ask, like, I don't need help with my writing. My writing is perfect. That's so not, right? I mean, like, I have grammar errors all the time because I'm more writing than I am actually editing. Okay? So when I have that shortcoming or a blind spot in the forefront of my mind, I'm actually able to see it and then do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the hypervigilance in knowing where you could go astray. Third one is that judgment is actually a virtue. People think judgment, we got in this thing like, don't judge anybody, don't judge. Now, what judgment is not dismissive, casual dismissiveness of someone. Judgment actually means discernment. You are in judgment all the time within yourself. You are discerning. You're making judgment calls all day long. And for some reason, this is why I love words, and I think it's important for us to understand the origin of words, because judgment does not mean some negative connotation that I'm passing judgment on you. What judgment means is I'm using discernment. It's a virtue, right? So seeing yourself in that you are constantly discerning who you are, that is judgment, right? And it actually is a virtue.
What creates your moral compass?
Correct. It's just not a very popular thing to say. 4 is be mature in your decision making. Conscientiousness, not compassion. So we're also living in a time right now where everything is all about if you're compassionate, you'll do this. If you're compassionate, you'll do that. No, like that is misdirected. It doesn't mean that you lack compassion, but it's more about being conscientious, right? So being kind to yourself doesn't mean eating a plate of brownies because like I deserve that. Like I had a hard day and I'm taking it easy on myself, right? That is not compassion, right? So being mature in your everyday decision making comes down to being conscientious of the decisions you're making. Which this one I just shared, that I'm angry at someone that doesn't deserve my anger. That's very immature. I was talking about it with my family last night. If you guys don't care about it, I can be telling you this story.
Sure.
It's a good example of how this works. So me and Casey and Scarlett were having dinner. And I said to Scarlett, do you remember when you were like 9? I think she was about 9. And she just was irritated by me. She's really, really high in conscientiousness. And she is very low in trait openness. And like, we're really opposite. Okay. And some of that is her nature. She's Asian. Has a lineage that would be very by the book, very left hemisphere. This is how we do things. I am so not that. Like, really. There was a Christmas where she told me, like, I wish you never adopted me. It was like, yeah, it was heartbreaking. Like, yeah, it's horrible. Like, we just talked about it this Christmas too. She didn't mean it, right?
Yeah.
But there was an Asian family eating Christmas dinner next to us at this restaurant, and she just was like looking at them like longingly the whole entire dinner. It was the fucking worst Christmas of my life. But anyway, she went through this time where she was irritated by me because I just was everything that she wanted. I was nothing that she thought she wanted.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But she was 9. So of course she was immature in her thought process and her decision making, right? Me acting like that now is like my daughter acting like she did when she was 9. How immature of me, right? My husband was like, God, like, you just are so hard on yourself. I'm like, that is not being hard on myself. That is being completely honest with myself so I can overcome that. When we're being immature, we need to call ourselves out on it, right? So here I was acting like a 9-year-old, being angry. Don't expect to find short-term solutions to long-term problems. Next one is learn to articulate what you want for yourself. Accept that not everything has an answer or a solution. That is a global mindset at this point. And unfortunately, I really don't see it ever changing. We're not on course for that ever to readjust. It's not going to. It's not how civilizations work. So we think that we have to have a solution to absolutely every problem. Right? It comes up in every issue that we've all faced, the COVID issue that we all faced. We needed an answer, a solution, and it's like to something that doesn't have an answer nor a solution, right? Which shut down all discussions and everything else. So we need to embrace in our own lives that there's not an answer and a solution to everything. And then lastly, this is a big one. Be willing to change course when something isn't working. When you learn that it's not working the way you thought, change course. And that sounds so simple, but it is not easy to do because we don't like to feel like we were wrong. We don't like to feel like we spent all this time and energy wasted on something. I'm facing this in CoPal right now. So with the economy and everything else, I won't bore you with the details, but we launched during COVID. We launched right as COVID was happening. We were supposed to be business to business. We were going to be in the airport, convention centers. We were not going to home delivery. COVID hit. Nothing was open. Everything I had just done in building this business was going to collapse before it even got started. So I had to go back, shift gears, take my whole team along with me and be like, it's going to be okay. We're going to go direct to consumer. Spent $80,000 to rebuild the website before it even launched, just to put all those zip codes in there. By the time all that happens, now we're in a world where direct to consumer is not going to work. Really, you can't make this shit up. Like, you can't make this up.
It's that fast.
We just had our annual meeting a week ago and everyone's like, what the fuck are we going to do? You're saying we're going to shut off this website? And I'm like, yes. We are going to shut off the direct to consumer. All the people that are current clients, they're no longer getting food from us. We have contracts with schools. We're going to the schools. We're going back to the airport. We're going back to our original plan. And $80,000 sucks that we spent it on the website. Maybe in 2 years, once we grow, we can reopen the direct to consumer, right? Organically grow into that. So that's what it means to change course. And it's painful, right? That kind of stuff, thankfully, is not that painful for me because I am okay with failing. It's hard for some people, like my husband and my sister. They're like, oh my God, that is just such a waste of money. It's not, right? So knowing that it's okay to change course and it's worse off to sit there and grind away at something that isn't working than just to admit it isn't working.
Yeah.
And the frame, I wouldn't even call that failing. I think that's pivoting.
It is pivoting, right?
Like,
And
there's no
thankfully,
failure
we're
in
a
that.
young
It's
company,
just
so I can
pivot.
pivot any which way I want,
Yeah.
right? I'm not like so deeply entrenched in something that I can't change course. So it actually is, it's a beautiful thing. Cool. Last thing that we didn't get to would just be in developing a mantra. And I don't even know if we'll go into it today. What I may do is just save it for a whole nother day, like our first call of
Yeah.
on the live stream for the first of the year. We'll talk about setting a mantra because that's in your daily, the micro, setting your intentions for the day. Cool. So last thing is our membership site to bring everybody up to speed. I've got everything going into all the things I've ever taught. It's Strong Start. Like all my recipes, the 468 recipe database that used to be in my EML membership site, exercise library, fitness library. Jenny's in there doing all our demos. We have because we had an app too when it was still going to be just fitness. All of that is getting put into my membership site, which will have my writings. It'll have everything I've ever taught and everything I'm teaching going forward. So cool. And we're probably, I would safely say that's going to be the first part of Q2 in 23 because it's being done now. And then this video will be one front and center in there. So the membership site is coming, which will then mean that the locals will go away because I'll be able to just do live streams through my membership site.
Sure.
And then everything else I'm doing is just on my Substack, writing on my Substack. If you like my stuff, please share it. Okay. I'm shadow banned on all Instagram and all that kind of stuff, so nobody sees my stuff. Just so you realize that. But that's real.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
It's a real thing. I shared a video about a vaccine insert that the vaccine insert doesn't actually have any information on it, which is just facts. I shared it and it got 10,000 views on my reel. The next day I had like 30 people see my Instagram story. So that's real. So if you like my stuff, please share it. I would really appreciate it. It's the biggest compliment you could pay. And then lastly, I really contemplated this and wanted to make sure I had the time to do it, but I'm going to bring on 5 individual coaching clients this year. And it's not going to be all at once. It's just going to be kind of like on an application base because people ask me all the time, like if I individually coach, and I'm going to start doing that for like it would be a minimum 3 month that I would require from someone. And it's not a permanent thing. Like that's what people need to realize. I'm not someone that's going to like coach people forever. Like these would be wherever you're at, you feel like you need some assistance in that, getting you to the next step, which is what good coaching should look like. I should give you all the tools you need to do it on your own, not pay me for the rest of your life. And so I'm kind of excited about that. I'm going to take on 5 new clients in 2023.
It'll be fun.
Yeah. And so I'll put that information out there. It'll be on the website and stuff for people to send in the questionnaire to just not to see if you to basically see if I have the skill set to help people with what they're trying to do.